All right, on the screen, we have a list of vocabulary that will help us with a comprehension passage that we will do in a bit, right? So I just had the notes set on top. Please note any words that you don't know by heart. Take note your note now, right? But any words that are unfamiliar to you, please write them down on a list, right? If you think you'll see the word and you don't know what it means, then you need to make a note of it. The goal for today is to talk about informal positive commands and how to combine object pronouns or reflexive pronouns with those commands, right? All right, so I'm going to give 2 more minutes on this slide. And then we're going to go to the commands first, work on that for a little bit, come back to the comprehension, and go back for the commands. We'll come back to vocabulary later. So we have, first let's just review, right? You should know this by heart by now, right? I do have a link for a video that gives a lot of examples of positive commands that I'll share with you after, right? All right, so third person singular of the verb is how we form the positive to command, right? So hablar would be habla, comer would be come, escribir, escribe, right? And an easier way to think about it is the to form of hablar is hablas, right? And you drop the S. The to form of comer is comes, drop the S. The to form of escribir is escribes, and you drop the S, right? So it's just you drop the S in the to form of the present tense to get the positive commands if you want to tell somebody to do something, right? All right, now let's do some examples of to commands. So you want to tell somebody eat the soup. What do you tell them? To eat is comer. How do you tell them eat the soup? The soup is la sopa, right? All right, so take a try and put your answer in the chat. Good. Right, so some people have told me como la sopa, right? But remember that is really I eat the soup. And it was delicious. And some people have told me comer la sopa, right? And this is to eat the soup. We have to change the ending to show who is doing the action. So to change the ending, we take the infinitive, we cross off the ER, and we add E in this instance, right? All right, so please note the English and then the Spanish version of it. And then there was a little extra piece added on here for style, while it is warm. Mientras, while it is warm. Okay, so check your answer against what I'm asking you, not what I'm asking you, what I'm telling you the answer is. And if you're confused, let me know, right? All right, the next one is speak Spanish. Okay, so this vocabulary, speak is hablar. And Spanish is español. So once you think you have your answer, send it. Even if it is still the wrong answer, send it. Okay, so now if I say, ella habla, oops, I accidentally showed the answer, but that's all right, because I think we're ready, right? If I say ella habla español, right? I mean, she speaks Spanish. You don't need to write this down. I'm just showing us something, right? If I write habla español, maybe I mean he, she, or it speaks Spanish, but I could also mean speak Spanish, the command, right? I could also be saying to you, speak Spanish. The teacher could be saying to you in Spanish class, speak Spanish, right? So we take the ella form and we drop the ella, and then when we say it, I guess in the context, because we're saying it to somebody, they will know it's a command, right? So Juan, habla español en la clase. Presumably the teacher is in front of Juan. There's the teacher, and there's Juan. Okay. And if it's too hard to remember the grammatical rule, then just think of it like this. You take the to form of the verb and you cross out the S. Okay, last one on this slide. Eat the carrot. Carrot is zanahoria, and eat again is comer, right? Okay, a few more. Take this book. So tomar well, you have to conjugate this for me, and the fork is el tenedor. So tomar, the third person singular of tomar is toma, right? Or if you prefer, saying the to form, Tomas, and then you drop the S, right? So toma el tenedor. Well, este tenedor. All right, there's grandma. Help your grandmother. Ayudar is to help. Right, and grandmother is abuela. All right, one little trick here with ayudar and abuela. She comes and she's the object of the sentence. She gets something called a personal a, right? Ayuda a tu abuela, right? So help your grandmother. This is called the personal a. Whenever there's a person receiving the action in a sentence, an a is required in front of them, right? The last one on the slide. Run and save your life. So you have two commands, run, correr, and salvar. All right, so third person singular of correr will be corre. Right, and third person singular of salvar will be salva. I think I used salva. Could I use guarda? Okay, corre to, well, the two is optional. Y salva tu vida, and save your life, right? Okay. Now, so far, pretty straightforward, but at times we will have to add in object pronouns into the mix or reflexive pronouns into the mix, right? So we're going to look at the rules for those, what we have to do. And really for positive commands, we put it on the end of the command. And then we put an accent. I think I might have mentioned this last week, but I didn't have you write it down, right? All right, so let me go back a second here. One step. All right. Not going back, right? Okay, so we're looking at, when we say adding pronouns, we're talking about subject pronouns, not subject, sorry. The opposite of subject. We're talking about object pronouns, but I meant to write reflexive and I wrote subject. Okay, so reflexive, remember when you have a reflexive verb and you have to put in an extra me or say or te, right? We're also talking about direct object pronouns. And then we're also talking about indirect object pronouns. Right, and we will get into what those are shortly. Really what we're trying to learn is your rules of placement, right? All right, so for reflexive verbs, we attach the pronoun at the end and put an accent where the stress would have been before we added the pronoun, right? Direct and indirect. All right, now we understand what I mean by the at the end of the command. Right, so for instance, just now we had as one example, eat the soup, come la sopa. That's not a reflexive verb, my bad. When your teachers tell you to sit in class, what do they say in Spanish? Do you remember? Right, they might say siéntense, or they might say siéntate if they're just talking to one person. So you have heard it. Let me do the two form because that's what we did. So siéntate. Right, if we write it out, we put an accent here because before we added the te, we had sienta, right? And because of the rules of Spanish pronunciation, the stress fell here. We don't say sienta, we don't say sienta. We say sienta, which means the stress is going on the E. So when we add in an accent, the rules of pronunciation mean the stress would now fall on the A. When we add in a syllable, sorry, the stress would now go here, it would go from here to there. So we might say sientate. But we want the stress to stay where it belongs, which is on the E, right? So we put it there. The pronunciation rule is that the stress falls on the second to last syllable if the word ends in a vowel, right? All right. And this is generally the rule that they all follow. You join the pronoun to the end of the command, and then you put an accent to keep the stress in the right place. So for direct object pronouns, so in English, the direct object pronouns are me, you, it, him, her, them. It's the same rule, right? So I have same written there. Reflexive pronouns, you'll remember myself, yourself, himself, herself, etc., right? ourselves, yourselves, themselves, right? All right. Direct object pronoun, same rule. You add it to the end, you put the stress where the syllable, where the stress was before you added the extra syllable, right? Indirect object pronouns, so that's to me, to you, to it, to him, to her, to them. Same thing. Now, there's one other slightly tricky part, which is suppose you have to use more than one at the same time. Yeah, what's the order for that? All right, so the next really important rule here is number 4. 1, 2, and 3 is generally the same thing. Put the pronouns at the end of the command and put an accent to keep the stress in the right place, right? When you have to use more than one pronoun, so you might want to say in the sentence, one possible sentence is give it to me. So the it is an object pronoun, but so it is to me. It is direct, to me is indirect. I sent it, direct object pronoun, to her, indirect object pronoun, right? So how we go, this is the order. We do the verb command first. We put the reflexive pronoun first. Then we put the indirect object, and then we put the direct object. Right? So if in your command, you have to include, I mean, maybe it's reflexive and there's an object pronoun, or maybe there's a direct and indirect object pronoun. This is the order they follow. If you think about it, this is probably the opposite of English, because if we had to say, give it to me, the it comes first and then the to me, so that's direct object, that indirect object, right? All right, I'm gonna pause for a minute while you'll finish noting this. All right, so we're doing commands with reflexive verbs first, right? All right, so to wash one's hands, lavarse. Okay, and with body parts, we always use the direct, the article, the definite article, sorry. So los manos, right? So if I want to say to you, wash your hands, same rule as before, lava. But now I have a te to account for because it's you are washing your hands. So te, right? And where was my stress before? Here. So lavate los manos. All right, so let's wash your hands. The next one is sit here. Yes, sit here. So sentarse. And aquí. And we sort of already talked about this before. So it'll be sienta for the command form, and you have to put in te at the end. You said te, siéntate, and an accent over the E to keep the stress there. Aquí, right? The last one, take a shower now. So take a shower is tomar una ducha. No, sorry. I mean, that is fine, yes. But also, I think in the example I've used ducharse because we're doing reflexive verbs. So we take that off, right? Ducharse. So y'all like to try this one and send the answer for it? Try it and see. All right, so take a shower, duchate ahora, right? So how do we get that? I'm speaking to a you, a familiar person. So the command is ducha. Oh, sorry, no accent as yet. But when I add the te, I also have to add an accent to keep the stress on the you, right? So duchate now ahora, right? All right, how confident do we feel that we know our reflexive pronouns? Is that holding us back? Okay, so a reminder, let's just remind ourselves of all the pronouns, well, that will be relevant for this exercise. So for the yo form, so this is reflexive, these are reflexive pronouns, right? So for I, it would be me, for the yo form of the verb, for the to form of the verb, for the you, it would be te, which we've been using, for the ele, ea, usted form, it would be se, for the nosotros form, it would be nos. We don't do vosotros. So the eos, eas, ustedes form, it would be se. Any issues? This is all just revision, right? Okay, one time, let's do the Spanish direct object pronouns. Anybody is confused by what the difference between direct and indirect is? Please say, right? All right, so me would be me. You would be te. Him or it masculine would be lo. Her or it feminine would be la. Us, nos, and them, los or las, depending on the gender of the thing we're referring to, right? All right, so you know what he said, set is, right? Indirect object pronouns. Okay, so here we have indirect object pronouns. And if it is to me, to you, te. So far it's the same. Now here's where it's different. To him, to her, to it, le. Right? So it's just the le versus the lo and la for direct object pronouns. To us, nos. To them, les. Right? The object pronoun we choose must agree with the noun it's replacing in number and gender. All right, so refrigerador, refrigerator, that should be familiar to everybody, right? Vacío, empty. Llamar, to call, so that should be familiar to everybody too. Consentir, to spoil. Like, and I love it, like you spoil your niece or your nephew or your son or your daughter or your friend or whomever, right? You treat them too nicely. That kind of spoil, right? Albóndigas, meatballs. Emocionarse, to get excited. Cucharada, spoonful, like a tablespoonful. Hacer una mueca, to make a face, right? Like you're in pain. Ponerle, poner is to put, since we're doing object pronouns, I was looking for a passage with some object pronouns for us to practice, right? So to put it in, put in it. Picardía, mischievousness. Sudarse, to sweat. Desesperadamente, desperately. Galleta, cookie. Guiñar un ojo, to wink. Sorpresas, surprises. So that too is familiar, right? All right, so you all took down the ones that you wanted earlier. And now let's look at the comprehension. All right. Juan tenía mucha hambre. Pero su refrigerador estaba vacío. Entonces llamó a su abuela. So here is the answer to number 1 in this sentence that we have just read. Abuela, ¿tienes comida? Necesito algo delicioso. Does anybody do this? When anybody does what Juan has done here? Su abuela, que siempre lo consentía, le dijo, claro, te prepararé mi famosa sopa de albóndigas. All right, so notice in perfect tense, and this was consentir to spoil. So what does this mean? So abuela, his grandmother, who always spoiled him, told him, right? So lo is the direct object pronoun and le is the indirect object pronoun, right? Claro. Okay, we already said that, right? I will prepare for you my famous meatball soup. Okay, so tell me about what is happening in the first line of the passage. What did Juan do? What was Juan going through in his life? And so why did he call his grandmother? All right, and so here is the answer for number 2 in this line. What does this mean? Tenía mucha hambre. He what? So tener hambre, tener mucho hambre, to be very hungry, is how we translate it, right? To have much hunger. And so he called his grandmother. Do you all do that? Right. When you're sending the answers to me in the chat, you could just send a phrase, and then what you write in your book could be the complete sentence, right? I'll give you time at the end to write the answers. Okay, let's just make sure we understand the passage, and then I'll give you time to write up answers. Okay, Juan se emocionó y fue corriendo a su casa. Cuando llegó, su abuela le dijo, aquí tienes, pruébala. So here's a nice little, what is this? This is a to command with an object pronoun attached, right? Probar, to try, right? I notice present tense here. Llegó, because we could only arrive somewhere once. So it's finished and completed. Present, right? All right. Juan tomó una gran cucharada y de inmediato hizo una mueca. What did he do? He made a face. Abuela, ¿qué le pusiste? What did you put in it? Right? And she says, so ella sonrió con picardía. She smiles mischievously. Sonreír, to smile. Le puse mucho amor y un poco de chile extra. So what did she put in it? She put amor. What is amor? She put love, right? And she puts a little bit of extra pepper, a little bit of extra chili, right? Chile extra. All right. Juan empezó, he began a sudar y tomar agua desesperadamente. So what was he doing? He began to sudar, we saw was sweat. Okay, so one is clearly not a Trini, right? And this is clearly not a Trini story. And to drink water, tomar agua. Probably ran to the pipe. Yes, and began to drink water desperately. Right. Abuela, me mataste. You're killing me. You've killed me, right? Tu abuela se rió y le dio una galleta. So what does she give him? A cookie, right? Cómetela, te ayudará. So again, look at our object pronouns here. Come, eat, it. And I guess she makes a reflexive to emphasize you eat it, right? And it will help you. So normally, pronouns come in front of verbs. Object pronouns come in front of the verb in Spanish, but in commands, they come at the end and join. That's why we're spending so much time going through it, right? All right. Juan le mordió y gritó. So he bit into it. Morder to bite. Right? And he shouted. Abuela, esta también tiene chile. What does he say? These are all straightforward words, right? So that is number 6. And ella le guiñó un ojo. So she winks and she says, siempre hay que estar preparado para las sorpresas de la vida, Juanito. So this is her response. And then finally, what lesson does Juan learn from the experience? So we sort of have to extrapolate. Okay, so look back at the passage, please. See if you have any questions, anything that you still really don't understand, any of the answers you cannot find. Any more time we read. Okay, so first question, why did Juan call his grandmother? Because he was hungry and he had nothing in the fridge to eat, right? His fridge was empty. So 1, he was hungry and his fridge was empty. What did she offer to prepare for him? She offered to prepare her famous meatball soup, right? Did she call it famous? Yes, she does. She calls it famous, right? How did Juan react when he tasted the soup? He made a face. All right, are we done with 4? Can we move on to 4? What ingredient did his grandmother add to the soup? She added chili. Or if you say love and chili, you would get a mark. Right? Or love and pepper, you would get a mark. All right, I'll give you 2 more minutes for the next. Okay, ready for the last four? Forgot to pause the recording. My bad. All right, so number 5. What did she give him to help with the spice? She gave him una galleta, which is a cookie. What did Juan shout after biting the cookie? He was like, "You've killed me." I know. So if you said you hurt me, that would be okay, right? What was his grandmother's response when Juan complained? She winked. Did she laugh? No, she didn't laugh. She winked and she said, "You have to always be prepared for surprises in life," right? She was amused, maybe, and said he must always be prepared. What would the lesson be to learn from all this? Expect the unexpected. Number 6. Number 6. Oh, I'm so sorry. Number 6 is why. You're right, Antonion. Thank you. All right. So why did he shout? He shouted because the cookie had pepper and it burned him. Right? Right? All right, good. All right, so for number 8, what lesson? Always be prepared. Right? Any questions you could ask? All right, can we move on? All right, so let's finish up with our commands, right? So I'm going to clear this away. And let's go back. We just have a few more examples to look at. We'll move a little faster, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 slides, but if we don't get through all 4, but we could, right? All right, so with reflexive pronouns, you will have a 15-second head start to think up your answer. Okay, so the first one, tell me it. So you go to your friend and you say, "I have a story to tell you," and they say, "Tell me it." Let's think up the components for this. So to tell is this here, right? Me is the direct. No, me is the indirect. It's like saying tell it to me. So it is the direct object. So that will be, well, it depends on what the thing is, but we'll go with low, right? And me, really it's to me, but in English we just said me, right? But it could be tell it to me, and that would be me, right? Now, if you remember that this here have an irregular to command of D, and what was the rule? The indirect goes in front of the direct, right? So tell me it. D is tell. This is to me, the indirect. And this is it, right? All right, next one is put on the uniform. Poner to put also has an indirect, not indirect, irregular to form, right? Of pon. All right, so poner se, the reflexive pronoun will be te, and we put an accent on the O, right? So put, this is the reflexive pronoun, and il uniforme, right? Now, if for some reason you wanted to say put it on, what is the order? Reflexive first, and then you put direct and indirect after. So put it on, pontelo, right? All right, last one on this slide, get dressed quickly. So for dressed, you could use vestirse. I think that is what I used, which is reflexive. All right, so you can take a try with that one. All right, so let's look at the vestirse. If we conjugate this, vestirse is stem changing e to I. So it'd be me visto, I dress. To vistes, I take off the S for the command, right? El, viste, right? All right, so dress is viste, and you add on a T, because it's a TE because it's reflexive, right? That's a reflexive pronoun. And then quickly rapido. And I accent on the I to preserve the stress, right? All right. Anybody still using this slide? No? Okay, great. So let's just remind ourselves of one thing before we go on to the next group to translate, which is this here. when you have more than one pronoun that has to fit in your command, you have to put in a particular order, right? So it goes verb, the reflexive pronoun first, the indirect pronoun, and the direct pronoun, right? Object pronouns, of course, okay? Reflexive, indirect, direct, RID, rid, as in, we wish we could get rid of all these grammar rules, but we can't, right? Rid. All right, now we're going to combine direct and indirect, right? So again, let me write it on top here. Right, so we would put reflexive, sorry, command, plus reflexive, plus indirect, plus direct. Now we're doing this for two. It will be the same for the others. The usted form, the ustedes form, the nosotros form, positive commands, right? It's when we get into know, then we have to put it in front, but the order will be the same. All right, anyway. Direct or indirect object pronouns. So give it to me. So give is dar. Doy, das, da, right? It's direct object pronoun. It depends on what it is, right? Perhaps it will be loved, perhaps it will be la. We don't know because I didn't tell you what the noun was, right? But to me will be me. Now, according to the order, this is the indirect. So according to the order, it will have to be me and then lo when I write up the command, right? So we have damelo and an accent on the A to keep the stress there. I'm sure that you must have heard this in some popular song that you listen to. All right, bring it to us. Traer, right, is to bring. So traeo, traes, trae, right? It, again, depends on what it is. I didn't specify. It could be lo, it could be la, right? To us, nos, right? To us is the indirect because it has that preposition in front that tells us it's indirect, right? So that will go before. So you're noticing that in English, the order is not the same. It goes direct and indirect. But for Spanish, you put indirect first. So traenos la. Last one, read it. Leer to read. Leo, leyes, leye. For read, and then it. That's not indirect, that's direct. So it will be lo or la, depending, right? Leyelo. All right, who is feeling confused and overwhelmed? Let me hear. Anybody? Anybody is feeling like this is confusing and they don't know what we're doing? All right. All right, no problem. If then we are okay, we have a good, the notes are clear, we understand what to do, it's just practice that we need. Okay, so I'm just gonna recap up to where we are today, and the remaining two slides we'll use for revision at the start of class next week, right? So today we spent our time going back over how to form positive to commands and how to combine object pronouns with them. What is the next longer project you would like to work on? Would you like to work on writing a letter? Would you like to work on writing a composition, completing a dialogue, any vocabulary topic anybody has that they want to review? If not, my next longer topic will be a letter. All right. Next week, we continue with this, and we want to move on to the other persons for the commands as well, right? So please, homework is just to revise. What are the pronouns? What are the object pronouns? What are the reflexive pronouns? And revise the placement. At the beginning of class, I would like to do a quiz to make sure that we have revised and then we're on the same page, right? All right, guys, once you're done with your note, you all are free to go if you have no more questions, right?